Hello and welcome to this, the 19th of Ovid's Heroides. It's a reply from Hero to Leander, following on from letter 18 from Leander to Hero. These two lovers live on opposite sides of the Hellespont, as it was then, the Dardanelles now, and they keep their affair secret, so he swims across at night in order to see her and then swims back just as dawn is coming. But the weather has turned, so he hasn't been able to swim over. His letter was basically a wretched plea for the weather to change because he's so desperate to see her. She is just as desperate to see him. But because of their respective circumstances being different, her desperation manifests itself in quite a different way from his. So, Hero's problem is obviously the same as Leander's. The weather's changed. She can't wait to see him and literally can't wait by her account. Line 4, she says, non patienter amo. I don't love patiently. Love her right now. But the difference between them is that she has nothing that can distract her. She has to just have the sort of fairly empty life of a woman in much of the ancient world, weaving or spinning wool with her old nurse, and having nothing to distract her from how much she wants him. She says, you know, he could be going to the forum, to the palaestra, the exercise place, gym, I suppose we would say now. He could be riding a horse, he could be catching fish, he could be doing whatever it is you do with birds, catching them in nets, something like that. He could do any of those things. I'm not sure quite how distracting all of them would be. There you go. I would have thought fishing allowed you quite a lot of free brain space. I'm not an expert, let's be honest. I've been vegetarian for far too long. There's nothing for me, she says, except loving. Poor Hero. It is, line 17, her sola voluptas, her one pleasure, is thinking about Leander and being in love with him. And this, of course, this solitude and this lack of distractions contributes to her anxiety. So she worries when the sea is rough, but she also worries that Leander will lose interest in her because his life is more exciting than hers. So she sits with her nurse panicking, line 24, that he just doesn't want to come and see her. Even though the weather's bad and he can't, maybe he just doesn't want to. She says she's asking everyone she sees, line 29, if he has come from Abydos, if he's going to Abydos, could she get a letter to him? Might he have a letter for her? She is desperate to make contact and maintain contact with Leander. She says, line 31, maybe I won't mention the time I've spent kissing your clothes. Leander was very keen to tell us that he strips off and then swims across the Hellespont naked, because what else would a young man and of good character want to do? In Bronze Age myth. Of course that's what everyone would do. I'm not sure if he has a regular supply of new clothes when he's abandoned the others on the shore. Let's not even go there. It's good to know that Hero is, like every decent womble, making good use of the things that she finds. So whenever she has his clothes because he's left them behind at her end of actually that doesn't work, does it? Because he must leave them behind on his side anyway. Otherwise, does he carry them across like Lassie or something in a bag on a stick and then gets to her side and no, because he told us that he got to her side naked. I'm sorry, I have discovered an inconsistency in this poem and I'm appalled. I'm going to write in and wait, when? I can't get around it. She has got his clothes that he left behind when he stripped to swim home, and she is spending her time kissing them because who on earth would do anything else? She says she sets out her lamp as soon as it gets dark to guide him across. This is how he sees his way across, we remember from his letter. She spends the time spinning wool, turning it into thread or yarn, and she can't talk about anything except him. We've all had it that bad, haven't we? Line 40, she says, there is nothing, we would say on my tongue, I guess, but in Latin it's in my mouth. There's nothing in my mouth except the name of Leander. She calls him mea gaudia, line 41, my joy. She's obsessed every night. She's obsessed with whether he might have set out and when, and maybe he's halfway across. Every noise must be him arriving, and then when it isn't. This is a masterclass in anxiety and destructive anxiety at that. When she finally gets to sleep, line 58, she dreams of him. She can feel his wet arms around her body. She says, I can't say any more because my tongue is too modest. I bet it is, Hero. Doing it was delightful, line 64, such an Ovid construction. Doing it was delightful, but talking about it would be shameful. Yeah, I'm sure we've all been there. So, Leander always leaves in a rush, line 65, which obviously makes her more anxious She wants the two of them to be bound together, she says, line 67, bound together as lovers. And then her anxiety builds, line 69, if he's so in love with her, why does she spend so many nights on her own? You know, why does she spend so many nights in a cold bed? She gets insecure and the insecurity just builds. Why didn't he come last night when the wind dropped a bit? Because then when the wind came up again, line 80, he'd have been stranded with her. This is miles better than being stranded on the other side. They can have as many storms as they want, as long as he's stranded on her side. She can't shake the fear, line 82, that he doesn't want to come. Line 86, she says, you came before when the sea was no calmer than it is now. It was maybe a little bit calmer than it is now, but basically not calmer. And then she wants him to be safe, line 91. She's absolutely torn up. She wants him with her, but she doesn't want him to risk his life. Really what she wants is the weather to improve, and there's not much that either of them can do about that. And it sort of morphs into this fear that he'll stray and abandon her. Line 103, she says she can bear anything except him finding someone else. It's anything else is copable with, but not that. And then she switches her pleas to the right place, really, which is the god Neptune, who is the real problem here with his terrible weather and miserable stormy seas. So she says, you know, go and wage war on the open seas, Neptune. Line 141, stop scaring swimmers. It's like, she's so worried for him. She writes by lamplight. Her nurse reads omens into the flickering flames. This may seem bonkers to us, but obviously the Romans felt differently about this kind of thing. So she's writing by the lamp. The nurse is reading the way the flame flickers. And the nurse says to her, line 154, cras erimus plures. Tomorrow there'll be more of us. I love it when Hamilton lyrics appear in Ovid. I honestly can't tell you. It's genuinely the highlight of the Venn diagram overlap of my day. What's that? You're going to take my lunch money? No, you aren't. Don't be mean. And so, line 162, Hero doesn't think it's safe for women to swim, or at least not as safe for women to swim across the strait. It is, after all, named after Helle, who drowned in the Hellespont where her brother Phrixus survived. So she has a point there in terms of mythological precedent, I suppose. And yet she says she could swim halfway. She could meet Leander in the middle. So she's being brave, really. And then line 168, they would kiss. Of course they would kiss. These young lovers can't be kept apart by oceans. Line 170, she wishes that they didn't have to keep their affair secret. That would, of course, resolve the problem, because then Leander could sail across rather than having to swim secretly across, and he wouldn't have to wait for quite such good seas. And then that takes her back. Again, she's worried about his safety. Line 186, she's worried about him swimming because that's what sailors do when they've had a shipwreck. It's not what anyone does as a sort of fun hobby the way they might now. Line 187, this is really crucial to her, I think. She wants him to resist her persuasion. So she's written this whole 200 lines of poetry almost now, pleading with him to come, and yet in the end she doesn't want him to because she's frightened that he'll drown. And so she's hoping that he can resist. Line 198, she says she fell asleep while she was spinning and she dropped the thread. This has to make us, Ovid's readers, think of the fates who spin the thread of our lives, and then if it drops, of course, game over. It doesn't bode very well. No good omens in Leander's letter to Hero, and not very many good ones in Hero's letter to Leander, aside from the one the nurse thinks she can see in the flames. And then just to add to the bad omens, line 199, a dead dolphin washes up on the coast of Cestus. If Flipper can't survive the crossing, how could Leander? It just gets from bad to worse. I just don't know what to say to Hero. It's all so difficult. In the end, line 210, the poem concludes with the word moras, delay. That's the thing that really pains her the most. I'm afraid they don't have a happy ending. Leander will eventually drown on the way over to Hero, and she will drown herself in response. So they end up exactly as unfortunate as the poor dead dolphin on the shore. This is a much sadder ending than I was expecting. I'm so sorry. These things happen sometimes. Please do anyway. Join me again next week. Sorry about that. Sorry about the dead dolphin. Sorry about the dead people. Sorry about everything. Next week will be our penultimate letter, and that is from Acontius to Cydippe, because everybody loves a pedant, Acontius. Literally every single person alive. Wait, no one loves a pedant. Oh, more to find out. I'll see you next week. Bye.